evening, ladies and gentlemen. Outlook Money presents Investment Talk webinar series in association with Quantum Mutual Fund. It is good to be money wise, but what if I told you that you could now become a money genius? Yes, indeed. By acquiring a clear understanding of the Indian equity market and mutual fund investments, and learning strategies and algorithms to analyze one's risk profile in financial planning, you could ace the game of money management. So let's get going. My name is Aishwarya Singh, and I welcome everyone to Investment Talks webinar series, an investor awareness program in association with Quantum Mutual Fund, presented by Outlook Money. Today, we are going to have a conversation with Ms. Sneha Joshi, Associate Fund Manager, Alternative Investments, Quantum Mutual Fund, and we are going to be discussing the theme, selecting the right mutual funds to reach your financial goals. Ms. Joshi has over 6 years of experience in economic, credit, and quantitative research. She holds a PhD in economics and has earned an MA in economics from Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. She joined Quantum Asset Management Company in August 2015, and prior to joining Quantum, she was associated with Credit Capital Research as a fixed income research analyst. A very warm welcome to you, Sneha. It is great to have you with us today to share your expertise with our investors and our viewers. Now, before we get into deliberations, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Sneha Joshi will make a presentation on the theme, and thereafter we will get right into the talk. So, Sneha, over to you.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya. So happy to be here, and it's a very interesting topic. And I would just like to start with my presentation on how to select the right mutual fund based on your financial goals. You must have seen these following steps in multiple newspapers or financial magazines, or you must have seen it on mutual fund websites, that how to select a good mutual fund or how to plan your finances. So let's get to the first step, where you'd have to decide what kind of financial goals you have, what kind of risk tolerance can you bear, and what is your investment horizon. Once you know these three things, you can proceed to asset allocation. So what basically is asset allocation? That is, you're dividing your assets into different parts, like say equity, bonds, currency, gold, or even fixed deposit. Then you go ahead and decide within each asset which mutual fund suits your risk preference and your financial goal. Then you go on and decide within the mutual fund which category suits your profile. And at the end of it, you monitor your portfolio and then you rebalance as and when required. So this is all very theoretical. So let's get into understanding what exactly is a financial goal. So most of you have a goal to go for a dream holiday, or want to own a car, or even want to buy a big house. There are a couple of things like child's education, marriage, or retirement, which are long-term goals. So all of us have some or all of these goals when we decide about finances. So let's get ahead and put a number on it, and also put a time frame when you want to achieve these goals. So for instance, like a dream holiday, it's a short-term goal. Buying a car or a house is a medium-term goal. Child's education, marriage, or even your retirement, that is something which is a long-term goal. And you have different buckets and different financial goals that you need to achieve within a different time frame. And you have different amounts that you require to fulfill these goals. But now let's come to the reality. Reality, you must have all heard about inflation. So what exactly is inflation? So when your expenses are more than the earnings or the returns that you're earning, that is not going to help you. That is not going to upgrade your standard of living, or that is not even going to help you achieve your financial goals. So you need to invest in such a way that you are able to beat the inflation. That means your expenses are lower than the returns that you are going to earn. So let's say you invest in gold from 1990, you get a return of 9.6%, but your spending is increased by 10.4% from 1990 till now. So is gold going to make up for the consumer spending? No, it won't. What about Sensex? Sensex can definitely help you because Sensex has grown by 15%. And if you put your money in fixed deposit, it is actually going to earn you less returns as compared to what your spending is going to increase. So it's an easy choice. You can just invest everything in the Sensex and you are able to meet your spendings. At the same time, you can upgrade your lifestyle, your standard of living, and at the same time, you can achieve your financial goals. But is that a wise decision to make? I am sure it is not. Let's see why. So this is a chart of asset allocation. Basically, in asset allocation, what you do is you divide your entire investable surplus into different assets. It can be bonds, it can be real estate, stocks, precious metals, or even cash. Why this is important? Because there are cycles in different asset classes, and it's impossible to see which asset class is going to perform and which asset class is not going to perform. There are different models, there are different theories around it. But for a common investor, it is very difficult to spot the trend. So why not just optimize by dividing your investable surplus into different asset classes? Let's say you invest in all equities and you are happy about it because that is just one choice that you had to make. Now let's look at this period from Jan to March 2020, which is a very recent period. If you would have invested your entire surplus into equities, if you would have say invested 100 rupees into equities, your equity valuation would have fallen by 28%. But if you would have split that 100 rupees into 40 rupees equity, 40 rupees debt, and 20 rupees in gold, your asset value would have fallen just by 8%. So this is the benefit of asset allocation. This is a very interesting table where you can see that in 2008, if you would have invested entirely in equities, your asset value would have fallen by 52%. But just in the next year, your asset has grown by 83%. So can you really be sure which asset class to be in completely? Or it is better to optimize by investing into different asset classes so that the chances of having a risk adjustable return are more likely if you're invested into different asset classes. That not only divides your risk, but also gives you a benefit of diversification. So these are some of the benefits that I spoke about asset allocation. One is it reduces your risk. It increases your risk adjustable return probability. And at the same time, it helps you achieve your long-term goals with a greater focus. So let's come to mutual funds. So how does mutual fund really works? Mutual fund is a professional agency or asset management company which pools money from different investors. It can be small investors, big investors, it can be a retail investor or an institutional investor. And they manage your money and they put your money into different asset classes. It can be stocks, it can be bonds, it can be a mix of both, it can also be commodities. Depending on the type of scheme you invest in, the money gets divided into different asset classes. And the objective of the mutual fund is to earn returns. And those returns are passed back on to the investor. So pretty simple. But how is it different? And how can I not just mimic what the mutual fund is doing? So basically, mutual fund is a professional service. They have dedicated teams. They are constantly monitoring all the asset classes, the underlying stocks, securities that they hold in the mutual fund. That is why mutual fund is something which everybody should own. So coming to the benefits of mutual fund, why mutual fund is important? Because it gives you diversification. The return potential is enhanced when you go with a mutual fund. It's low cost. It has a good liquidity. There is transparency because mutual fund discloses everything that they own in a fund. There is a flexibility of getting into a mutual fund and exiting from a mutual fund. There are different varieties of schemes that you can opt for, and it is well regulated. There is also a good tax benefit if you invest in a mutual fund. So with your money, you can do more with a mutual fund. If you have, say, 2,000 rupees to invest in equities, let's say you invest some amount in HDFC, some in Infosys, some in Tata Motors, and some in, say, SBI. So you just own a couple of stocks with that 2,000 rupees of amount. But if you go with a mutual fund, you can hold a bunch of companies with just that 2,000 rupees because all the companies are there in a mutual fund scheme. Coming to different modes of investing, you can go with lump sum investment. Let's say you earn a good bonus this year and you want to put that money for some financial goal. You can go with a mutual fund. Let's say you are very disciplined and you want to put some amount of money every month. You can always go for a systematic investment plan. Let's say you are being a little bit more opportunistic. You would want to go for a systematic transfer plan where you can keep your money in a liquid fund or in any other fund and then move it according to your research or according to your theme that you want to opt for. And also there is an option of inter scheme switches where you can move your money from one scheme to another, depending on the financial goal or depending on the situation that you are in. Coming to different types of mutual funds. So there are open-ended schemes, there are closed-ended schemes, and there are interval schemes. So as the name suggests, open-ended schemes are where you can get in and get out whenever you want. Closed-ended schemes are for a specific duration of time. And interval schemes are something which is between some interval. There are different management styles. One is active management, one is passive management. There are different objectives. There are growth funds, there are income funds, and there are hybrid funds. In case of investment portfolio, there is an equity fund, there is a debt fund, there are hybrid funds, and also there are liquid funds. And then there are other types of funds like exchange traded funds, gold funds, retirement funds of funds, and also thematic funds. So as per the SEBI regulation, there are different types of mutual fund schemes which are categorized into equity, debt, hybrid, fund of fund, and also solution oriented schemes. Based on the different market caps, there are different categories within the equity scheme. And within the debt scheme, based on the credit and the maturity, there are different kinds of schemes. This is a very interesting chart which will tell you how the risk and return move along with the type of fund you choose. So as you go from low risk to high risk, you move from overnight funds to debt oriented funds in the debt scheme. And when you move from equity saving schemes to sectoral funds, that is where you move from low risk to high risk. There are different types of plans also in the mutual fund. One is the direct plan, another is the regular plan. Direct plan is where you can directly go to the AMC and buy a fund which you want to invest in. Or there is a regular plan where you can seek professional help from an advisor or a distributor who can help you choose a mutual fund and invest into that fund. So like I mentioned about the direct plan, you can always have a DIY approach. So in the DIY approach, what you can do is you can put aside 12 months of your expenses into the most safest investment. Let's say you put it in a bank account or in a FD or in a liquid fund. And 20% will be kept in gold, which will be like a hedge to your investment. And 80% of your money will go into the equity funds. So this way you can have a good asset allocation. At the same time, your risk is also managed. Coming to what you should look at when you are trying to research on mutual funds. The most important document is the scheme information document. So as the name suggests, it talks about the scheme. It gives you insights about what is the methodology the scheme is going to follow. What kind of a fund manager is managing the scheme? What is the expense ratio? Then there are additional informations which are disclosed in the statement of additional information. And then there is an abridged version of the scheme information document, which is called as the KIM. This is a very important disclosure which every mutual fund for every fund gives, which is called as the fact sheet. So fact sheet is nothing but you can say it is kind of a record of what the mutual fund is doing every single month. So it is like a report card. It talks about NAV, it talks about returns, it talks about the fund managers who are managing the fund. It also gives you information about the risk meter of the fund. And it also gives other statistics like what is the turnover, what kind of a churn ratio is there in the fund, how much is the AUM of the fund, and what are the portfolio holdings in that fund. This is another important thing that you should know when you're investing in the mutual fund. This is called as the product label. So you need to understand what is the kind of scheme that you are investing into. What is the time horizon? Is it a close-ended, open-ended? Is it a short-term scheme or a long-term scheme? Is it an equity-oriented scheme, debt-oriented scheme, or is it a hybrid? Also, what is the risk level? And I cannot even press more on this point that it is very important that you should read all the scheme information documents before investing into a mutual fund. As you know, because of the COVID, the longevity of life has become very uncertain. So I cannot even stress more on this point that nomination is very important. So this facility is given by mutual fund right at the time of your purchase, or even you can do it subsequently, where you can nominate a person to claim your units in case of death of the unit holder. So it is very important that you nominate someone when you are investing into a mutual fund and when you are a sole investor in the mutual fund. Lastly, I'll leave you with this thought of power of compounding. So this is a very interesting example where both Mr. Sharma and Mr. Kotian started investing for their retirement. And Mr. Sharma started a bit early. Mr. Sharma started a little late and Mr. Kotian started a little early. Both of them had some SIP. So Mr. Sharma started with a higher amount and Mr. Kotian started with a lower amount. And as you can see, the total corpus for Mr. Kotian has increased a lot, whereas the total corpus for Mr. Sharma is comparatively lower as compared to Mr. Sharma, even though he was investing more money. The reason for this is the power of compounding. So in power of compounding, your money will make money for itself. So earlier you start, the more money you will earn because of the power of compounding. So no matter how big or small amount you can start with, it is time to start early so that your money can earn for itself. With this, I would like to invite Aishwarya to begin with the Q&A if we have any.
Thank you very much, Sneha, for a very pertinent theme presentation. And I have to say, it was also an introductory presentation for new investors to learn so much about mutual funds. And I think it also sets the context for our conversation forward. Let me get into the questions now. Let me ask you the first question about the fact that the Indian equity market has been the best performing market in the last 1 year. Everyone has been talking about that. Foreign investors have poured over $31 billion in our markets. Nifty has traveled from 7,500 to over 17,500. Do you think, Sneha, that the current valuation is justified? And is this the right time to enter the market through mutual funds?
Thank you, Aishwarya. And I think this is the most common question that every new investor or even the existing investor comes up with. And the simple answer is that there is no right time. So there is a very famous quote by Mr. Warren Buffett who says that investing is time in the market and not about the timing in the market. So every investor is unique and has a specific goal and risk tolerance. So it is important to understand basically how the stock market works, what affects the prices, risks associated, and then make a tailor-made strategy according to the goals and risk appetite. So it is important not to just blindly follow a trend or an investment strategy without completely understanding the basics. So yeah, there is no right time. You need to define these three things, that is your financial goal, your risk appetite, and the time for your investment, and then go ahead and enter into the markets.
So then in saying that, you also mean that staying invested for a longer duration of time always benefits an investor, right? Thank you for sharing your opinion on that first question, Sneha. This is insightful for our investors, of course. It will also help our viewers understand their portfolio value better, and the fact that I think they should stay invested for a longer period of time. Proceeding forward, I want to ask, how should an investor approach investment for the first time? Let's say if I'm a first-time investor, what should be his or her time horizon and expectations from the market? Also, if you could provide insights on the historical performance of the market for a better understanding of investors.
So, as I mentioned before, there are three things. One is the financial goal. So, depending on the financial goal, let's say it is a short-term goal like a dream holiday or buying a two-wheeler, or a long-term goal, say like purchasing a house, that basically decides your target return or the amount of money that you want when you want to achieve your goal. And that would decide the time you should be invested in the markets. Second thing is the risk appetite. There are times when your risk appetite is low. So let's understand risk appetite is different from risk tolerance. The risk tolerance will decide which kind of asset allocation you will have, and risk appetite will decide that which riskier or low risk asset you will get into. So it is a very direct correlation that higher the risk, higher will be the return. So depending on the risk appetite and the kind of financial goal you will have, you will then go ahead and sort of invest into the markets. So that is how the first time investor should approach investing. And coming to the historical performance of the market, so markets have gone through a cycle, and every asset class has a different cycle. There are times when they are correlated, there are times when they are completely uncorrelated. So you cannot really make a judgment about the markets based on what the historical track record has been, but it will give you a good insight about the quality of the fund or the quality of asset class that you are going to hold. So I think the investor should make a good amount of research into understanding how the markets work before they go ahead and make any investment decisions.
Thank you for that answer, Sneha. This will certainly help our viewers make smarter investment choices, and I'm sure new investors can take many cues from your advice. Now, do you think Indian investors are capable enough to handle or choose the right plan without the help of an advisor?
Yeah, whether to go for an advisor or not, it's definitely a very important question. Because without a proper financial plan, taking decisions just based on intuition or speculation or just following some random trend can actually put a huge dent onto your finances. So it's certainly something that needs a lot of attention. But I would say that if you have time, if you have the effort, and if you have interest, there is a way to do it yourself. But taking a professional help definitely eases that load. So either you go for a DIY solution or you go for an advisor. The onus of your financial decision is going to be on yourself. So it is important that you know all the risks, you know about the investments, you know about the markets and the factors that affect the market. Maybe it's a macro factor or a micro factor before you go ahead with your investment decision. So yeah, there is no direct answer to this, but yeah, definitely if you want to save on your time and effort, and if you can cost wise, if it works for you, you can definitely seek out for a professional help.
One needs to understand the pluses of going with an advisor for investment decisions. And if one wants to be a savvy investor and wants to go without an expert advisor, lots and lots of research should be done before one can venture. But I think it's a good idea to have an advisor leading the way. I would also like to ask you then, Sneha, one should go with the banks while doing financial planning, or private advisory would be more helpful?
So there are a couple of things that you need to consider. One of the biggest things is the fees that probably becomes a very big factor when you are choosing an advisor. And another thing is what kind of services they are offering. So depending on your overall personal finance plan, you can decide which advisor suits your financial planning best. It may happen that an advisor will give you a very specific strategy, maybe on mutual funds. So it's up to you whether you want a different advisor for each of your financial decisions, or you want to go with one advisor who is taking care of everything. And that is when your fee structure comes into play. So it's totally up to the investor what is his comfort level and what kind of relationship they hold with the advisor or with the bank, and the services are aligning with the goals that the investor has. I think based on that decision would be much more simpler.
So in saying that financial planning with banks versus private advisory would have their own pros and cons, right? So it's always a good thing to know the differentiating factors and your comfort level.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. How to analyze one's own risk profile, let's say. Do you think investors understand various aspects of risk and have reasonable expectations from the market?
So like I mentioned before, there is a difference between risk tolerance and risk appetite. So most of the times investors use these two terms as synonyms, but it is not the same. So risk tolerance basically depends on your income, expenses, your financial obligations, or a nearness to your goal. And it's always advisable that no matter what your risk tolerance is, you should have an emergency fund that can cater to any kind of financial contingencies that can come in. So our recommendation, or anybody would recommend, to have at least 12 to 18 months of liquidity with them as an emergency fund. And then comes the risk appetite. So there are factors like age, your past experience, and knowledge about the markets and how things work in the stock market, or about mutual funds, or any other services that are offered for investing. That decides your risk appetite. So many of you must have read, or you must have seen, that with age your risk appetite goes down. So you need to make your assessment. You need to fill those boxes of your age, of your experience, of the kind of knowledge you have. At the same time, you parallelly have to look at the risk tolerance that you have before, deciding that whether you are a risk averse, risk neutral, or a risk taker person.
And also knowing the risk appetite kind of decides the returns one will get from one's investments.
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank you very much for letting us know ways to gauge this very important factor. How can one select the right advisor and the right fund?
So there's no one way actually to make that selection, and it can definitely be very overwhelming when you are looking at the advisors and the right fund. But as I mentioned, that putting everything into one fund, or putting everything into one asset class,
all your eggs should not be in one basket.
Yes, absolutely. That can be slightly scary. And same way, selecting a fund, you need to align your fund selection to your financial goals, so that that choice gets much more easier. And coming to the financial advisor, you need to look at the fee structure, you need to look at the services, and most importantly, investors need to feel that trust before selecting an advisor. So it's important to do a check on the license and license requirement, that the or the regulatory requirement, if the financial advisor holds or not, so as to check the fiduciary duty of the advisor, so that the advisor is acting in the best interest of you or not. That is something that the investor should check. And same applies for a fund, or same applies for the mutual fund as well.
Thank you, Sneha. My next one is on knowing more about the right funds and their history. So first, I'd like to ask you, how important is the past performance of a fund?
So past performance definitely gives you an idea about the macro factors, or let's say the variables which are correlated with the fund, and the micro factors, like the style of investing, or the fund manager, or the kind of investment decisions they are taking. That is showcased in the past performance. But it should be noted that the past performance does not give you an idea that this is what I'm going to earn in the future. So it can be a good metrics to judge the quality of the fund, but it cannot be used as something to predict the future performance of the fund, because it's very difficult to know exactly which cycle will play out. You can predict, but that does not give you 100% accuracy. So past performance can be looked as a good track record to seek comfort, as to understand if this aligns with you or not, but it shouldn't be taken just like that. And decide your investment decisions considering that this kind of return I will earn in the future.
That should not be the only parameter to judge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Are new fund offers, NFOs, the right way to start a mutual fund investment? And what are the pros and cons of investing in NFOs, and why NFOs are very aggressively marketed to clients?
So it can definitely be one way, but I would not say that it is the only way to start or get exposed to mutual funds. So a couple of things about NFO is that there is no track record when an NFO is launched, as the NFO means new fund offer. So you don't really know what kind of portfolio is there. You have a good idea about the methodology, the kind of mutual fund offering it is, or the type of fund it is, but precisely cannot say that this particular stock or bond is going to be in the fund. So that is one thing. So there is some element of unpredictability, some element of newness to NFO, and the launch time also makes a huge difference to the kind of NFOs that can be or not be successful. So those things, investor who is just starting out may not be able to gauge it properly. So yeah, definitely, if something is very lucrative, being offered at discount, and it is very straightforward, plain vanilla strategy, then in that case, definitely it can be a good start. But it is important to understand that NFOs are not like IPOs. Most of the people are now, comparing NFOs and IPOs. So in an IPO, there are limited number of stock units available. In NFO, it is not the case. The units are not decided by the offering. It is based on the demand supply or the kind of investment that flows into the fund. So it's okay to wait out and see the track record and then invest, rather than just jumping on the trend.
Got it. So investors should invest in an NFO if it fits their portfolio, and they should take that decision most likely with the help of an advisor, I'm assuming. But I would say, think there are pros and cons of investing in NFOs, right?
Definitely,
Yeah.
certainly.
So thank you for your answer, because that will help our listeners make informed decisions on that. Do you support thematic funds like fund tracing, digital currency, or sustainable development?
So it entirely depends on the kind of risk appetite you have. So if investors prefer a certain theme, or their investment objective is aligned with that theme, then it can be considered as one of the options. But again, you should not invest your entire investable surplus into that. You can definitely assign a certain percentage, maybe start small, and as and when you have the comfort with the theme, you can go ahead and invest a little bit more. But yeah, theme, as the name suggests, it can go out of theme and it can come back into the theme. Or a sectoral fund can shine in some period and may not shine in some other period. So it's good to have a diversification rather than just banking on themes or sectors only.
Right. Thank you for enlightening us about these new age investment options, Neha. Are there any advantages or disadvantages of being in big size funds? And what, according to you, would be the advantages and disadvantages of small size funds then?
So big size funds have a low cost. The expense ratio is lower for the big size funds. Given that there is, as the size increases, the expense ratios go down. There is an inverse relation between that, and they tend to predominantly invest into large cap companies to ensure that there is enough liquidity. In case of a huge redemption that can come in, or there is a pressure for liquidity. In case of smaller size funds, they have access to a wide spectrum of market, because obviously the liquidity requirement is low comparatively, but the cost for managing that fund is higher, so the expense ratio is higher. So there are pros and cons for both big and large size funds. It again entirely depends on the comfort of the investor, whether to go ahead with it or not. And of course, it's all laid out as to what kind of stocks or securities or market cap these funds are targeting. So it entirely depends on the comfort of the investor.
So is it then safe to say that some funds offer higher returns for investors willing to take more risks, while some are less profitable but safer options with respect to big size and small size funds?
Yeah, generally speaking, if you are in a smaller size fund, you have an option of going into different market caps and earn higher returns. And because of the liquidity constraints, the larger AUM funds have to invest into a large cap funds. But that again depends on the kind of fund category you are in. So let's say you are in a large cap fund, but your AUM is higher and AUM is smaller. In that case, your access is only going to be to the large caps. So no matter what, you're going to be in large caps.
Right. Thank you for detailing this for us. How important are the fund manager and AMC roles while selecting a particular scheme?
It's. I think it is another important decision to make for investor who is starting out, or even for a existing investor, because the fund manager managing the fund gives you an idea about the investment decision process, what kind of a thought process goes behind it, the AMC's objectives, missions, and what they have in mind, or the vision for the investor, is something that needs to be aligned with the investor. And at the same time, how well it managed fund is. So a fund manager can be a fund manager for one scheme, or can be a fund manager for multiple schemes. So that gives you a good idea as to how the fund manager is managing the fund. Is he focusing well on all the schemes, or is he preferring something? So that is something which needs to be gauged, and I think that plays a very important role when it comes to investing, because ultimately we have to have faith and trust with the fund manager and with the AMC when we are giving our hard-earned money to them.
Well, you're right, Sneha. As far as I'm concerned, fund managers and AMC truly act like the lighthouse in the sea of investment, a navigator really who
Yeah,
fetches better returns for you by charting out best financial strategies and plans. So
absolutely.
there is a lot of confusion, between large caps, mid cap, and flexi cap schemes. You did throw light in your presentation. Can you explain them a little more?
Yeah, so in flexi cap scheme, like the name suggests, it is a flexible scheme where you can be in any of the market caps. You can be in large caps, you can be in mid caps, small caps, or a blend of three. So it is also called as multi cap schemes. In large caps, you are predominantly in the companies where the market cap is more than 20,000 crores and above. And in the mid cap, you are in between 5,000 crores to 20,000 crore market cap companies. So these are the three different types of equity schemes that are currently offered in the market.
That is, I think, invaluable information for our viewers. I'd like to ask you, do you think a direct plan has an advantage over a regular plan? Apart from saving on fees, what are the other advantages of a direct plan? And how can one decide which funds to enter into when options are hybrid, equity, and debt funds?
So direct plans are actually best for those who want to increase their mutual fund returns by investing directly through the AMC. And like you said, there is a saving in terms of the expense ratios. Regular plans are basically suited for those who don't have enough information about the markets, need advice, and need somebody to regularly review their investments. Direct plans comes with a low cost, and they definitely earn a higher return over the regular plans. So there have been sufficient evidence that over the longer time horizon, the difference between the returns of a direct plan and a regular plan is quite substantial. So that is the key difference between the two. And in terms of looking at the three options between hybrid, equity, and debt, it's clearly a choice based on your financial goals. Once again, I am emphasizing on this again and again. That the financial goals and the risk appetite are very important. Also, one can take into consideration the taxation when it comes to choosing between these three options. But from an asset allocation perspective, it is always wise to have some amount or a certain percentage divided into all three, rather than just focusing on one. Maybe if you have a higher risk appetite and higher risk tolerance, then you can always have a higher proportion of investment to equity and lesser to debt or to hybrid, or split it equally between the two. Something that can be tailor-made based on your appetite.
And if you are in the long haul of financial planning, looking at direct plans does make sense, right? And as Sneha mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, there are other advantages that one does get by investing directly with a mutual fund company. So we got many insights on growing money with mutual funds with respect to one's risk appetite, return expectations from the market, and following advice of a fund manager or holding the reins yourself, investing with banks or going ahead with private advisory, every choice has its pros and cons, which should be well considered before you make these decisions. Selecting schemes and funds from the sea of options that are available in the market can be quite bewildering, right, Sneha, for a new investor.
Really.
Through our talk, we got clarity on differences in return potential, risks, and limiting factors of small and big size funds, NFO, digital currency, large, mid, and flexi cap schemes. Thank you so very much, Ms. Neha Joshi. This is indeed a very informative talk and an eye opener on many aspects of financial planning for our viewers and also debutant investors. Before we bring this to an end, before we bring the first episode of Investment Talks webinar series presented by Quantum Mutual Fund, brought to you by Outlook Money, to an end, let me ask you, Sneha, if you have any closing thoughts or closing comments for our viewers.
I would just say that it's very important to do research. It's very important to read all scheme related documents before you make any investment calls. Either you do it yourself or either you seek professional help through an advisor. It's very important to know what you're doing, because once the decision is made, it's not possible to reverse your decision. So make sure that you read everything before you go ahead and invest and not harm your financial interests.
Thank you very much, Neha, once again for joining us today and sharing your thoughts and investment strategies with us. Viewers, we hope you enjoyed our conversation today, and I thank you all for being here with us. I would also urge you to share your feedback and comments. You can also write to us with your suggestions or questions at letters@outlookmoney.com. We will be back with you very soon with the second episode. But until next time, stay safe, stay strong, stay invested, and keep following us. Thank you.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.